My name is Christopher Mellon. I'm the former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense in the Clinton and Bush administrations and the former Minority Staff Director of the Senate Intelligence Committee. I worked on Capitol Hill for over a decade for various senators on the Armed Services and Intelligence Committees. I was privileged to be involved in the intelligence community for nearly 20 years, reviewing intelligence activities on behalf of the American public. Obviously, they need to remain in the shadows, they need to remain classified, but they need to be consistent with our values and our interests. And it's important to have oversight of those activities. The Secretary of Defense has a huge span of control over 40 different agencies. He has to depend on a staff of people around him to keep an eye on many of these agencies and activities when they involve sensitive intelligence activities. So that was part of my function on the Secretary of Defense's staff to review sensitive reconnaissance activities, programs that, if exposed, could cause embarrassment to the United States.
But very carefully, are these objects intelligently controlled?
Some of them clearly are, yeah.
Could they be Russian, Chinese, or any other adversary
Conceivably.
country?
We're entertaining that possibility, sure.
What do you think?
The problem with that is that in some cases, the performance of these vehicles is so extraordinary, it's so radical, that we don't understand how it's possible even. And so it's difficult for us to imagine how our terrestrial rivals could master that kind of technology.
So, if they're not ours, if they're probably not Russian or Chinese or any other potential adversaries, does that mean they're alien?
I think that we have to entertain that possibility.
Now, you realise that is just mind-blowing in its immensity. The implications of that are extraordinary. We're talking about the possibility of alien life visiting this planet.
It is, and it is mind-boggling. It's hard to process, it's hard to digest, and yet, as a matter of integrity, scientific integrity, we have to be able to look at the facts and follow them wherever they lead.
Do you believe the UFOs exist?
We know that UFOs exist. This is not no longer an issue. The Navy itself has publicly acknowledged the fact that they exist, and Navy pilots, active duty pilots, have gone on the record in the New York Times acknowledging the fact that they exist. So the issue now is, why are they here? Where are they coming from? And what is the technology behind these devices that we're observing?
You have a strong reputation and a big title, and our huge resume, you're saying is actually happening. Has there been interaction being to being, human being to whatever these beings are?
Not that I'm aware of. These are interactions between intelligently controlled vehicles that are highly sophisticated, that are operating in and around U.S. military facilities. And hence the concern. The pilot's concern are, one, there have been near mid-air collisions, there's a safety issue, but two, there's a vital national security issue, which is that our sovereignty is being violated by vehicles of unknown origin.
What do you think kept it in the closet before? Like, when did the stigma start? And do you think this was like intentionally sort of set up this way?
It was. It was the Robertson Panel Commission, 1953, and they concluded during those Cold War days that this was a potential threat to national security because UFO reports might overwhelm our air defense and communication system, and that the Soviets might spook the public and somehow manipulate this issue. So they actually advocated in writing that this issue be debunked and discredited, and the government went ahead and did so extremely successfully, unfortunately.
And this all started with the Project Bluebook, correct?
Correct. It was during that era.
So what was the gentleman's name that was running Project Bluebook again?
Well, there were different people.
The guy who went on
the astronomer, Alan Hynek?
Hynek.
Yeah.
And Hynek went on to become a believer. So he started debunking and was told, essentially, the way he reported it was that he was told to kind of debunk every single case. Everything he could find, whether it was swamp gas or, ball lightning, find some way to explain this away. But then once he left Project Bluebook, he started openly discussing these cases, and he started discussing his own belief.
That's correct. And he felt badly burned as well, because he was trying to carry out his mandate that the Air Force had given him. As you may recall, in one instance, he went to Michigan and famously declared that the people of Michigan were misconstruing swamp gas for flying objects.
Yeah.
And so Gerald Ford, who was representing that district, got incensed, as did the local population, and Congress took a fleeting interest in the topic. And Dr. Hynek was very embarrassed, and understandably so. It was really quite insulting to these people who had very clear sightings of these objects. So he did eventually change his view publicly and was very critical of Project Bluebook.
Former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence Chris Mellon says sensor technology has improved dramatically over the years, but pilots have reported seeing some of the same things for decades.
Are there any similarities between these recent incidents and incidents that go back as far as half a century?
There seems to be a lot of continuity there.
How would you describe this thing that we can't explain?
What we're seeing are a number of distinct and different things. Sometimes we're seeing a 50-foot object that can travel at hypersonic speeds and seemingly go into orbit or come down from, altitudes above potentially 100,000 feet.
Do you think that we will see a release from the government that shows something conclusively?
There is more that could be shared, will be shared with Congress for certain. I don't see that coming to the public soon.
So when did you get interested in the subject of UFOs?
That happened at a surprisingly early age. I was 7 years old at a boarding school, and the principal of the school, a friend of his, had photographed video, an old reel-to-reel Kodak movie camera, had taken a home movie of a video of a UFO flying in beautiful blue skies, cumulus clouds, huge golden disc that comes into the picture and banks, goes into a cloud, and it disappears into this sort of wispy cloud in a way that would be very, very hard, I think, to fake somehow, particularly in those days with no computer-generated imagery. And it comes out the other side and then sort of goes off over the horizon. And I was stunned and flabbergasted, and myself and all the other kids ran outside that night and were looking at the stars, and it just sparked my curiosity, a lifelong curiosity.
I was quoting Eric Davis. I know you're familiar with his work when I read that New York Times paragraph a moment ago. Do you believe that there are objects in our possession, broadly defined, our possession, that are from something other than this Earth?
What I will say about that is that I think that assertion should be taken seriously.
This is not a United States issue. Are there other countries that have taken a lead in the exploration of this subject?
Absolutely. In fact, we're behind several other countries. France, for many years, has had an official process involving their national security forces and police forces. Every year they examine a number of cases and bring in outside scientists. But you're absolutely right. This is not unique to the United States. And further, our military personnel have similar experiences when they're deployed abroad in the Middle East and Afghanistan and elsewhere. So by all accounts, it is definitely a worldwide phenomenon.
They're both saying that it might be from another world.
There's no scientific reason or basis to doubt that possibility. That's a hypothesis that could explain the facts. People need to be open to that. We're spending billions looking for extraterrestrial civilizations. We've got spacecraft that have already left the solar system. It's possible somebody found us before we found them.
And the age-old question that I've been watching in movies my entire life, if they are smart enough to come here and have such advanced technologies, why don't they talk to us?
Well, if they're that smart, what would they have to learn from us? When you go to the zoo, do you talk to the animals?
No one's laughing at you for believing in otherworldly things?
Well, I'm not suggesting there are otherworldly things necessarily. I'm just pointing out that there is no scientific basis for denying that that could be the explanation in some cases. And moreover, it's hard to think of a better hypothesis in some cases. What other explanation accounts for a vehicle that can fly all day, drop from, space to sea level at hypersonic speeds, then hover, then, shoot off again at hypersonic speeds with a low radar cross section with no combustion technology, no air intake, no wings, no visible means of propulsion, no control surfaces. If somebody can tell me a better explanation, I would love to hear it.